What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of your favorite Flyers podcast. Dare I say, the only Flyers podcast that matters. That is Jawn Street Hockey. I, of course, am the mayor of Jawn Street, Sean Campbell, joined by my buddy, the man with the curly hair, who, even despite being tired, pulls through these podcasts with us for your entertainment. And that man is Kevin Curly McHugh. Kevin, how we doing?
It me. No, I'm not. I'm not tired today. I'm very relaxed. Actually, I feel good. I'm drinking some tea, so that's nice.
Pussy.
Excited to talk about the Flyers.
Gotta sip that.
What's going
Gotta
on
sip
with
the
you,
brown
Sean?
stuff, bro.
How are you doing, Sean? How are the people want to know how is Sean doing?
I don't know who Sean is.
Schwan.
I'm the mayor.
How's the mayor?
I'm good, man. Life's good. I'm sipping on some whiskey here. Just had a nice little dinner here. Relaxing Sunday. No Eagles football to cheer about or cry about. I know this is a hockey podcast, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that the National Football League is absolutely screwing not only the Philadelphia Eagles, because now they'll have to play on Tuesday night, the same night as the Flyers play the Capitals, the same night as our live podcast at Pike's Pub. But they'll also be playing the Giants now on a short week after playing Washington on Tuesday night.
Yeah, it's
Not
horseshit.
only are they screwing the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're screwing the entire city of Philadelphia.
Dude, wasn't it a rule made in the beginning of the year that there would be no postponement of games, and that if you couldn't field a team because of COVID, it was a forfeit? Was that not something that they established earlier in the year?
Correct, but as we all know, the NFL makes their own rules. With that being said, if any of you guys out there watching live along on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter are going down to the game, make sure you leave early. Whatever game you're going down to, it's going to be a little scheduling conflict. The sports complex is going to be nuts. The Flyers are playing the Capitals, and the Eagles are playing the Washington football team.
Yeah, I don't know how people are going to react to us speaking through an amp while the football game is being played. Do you think
Yeah,
we're gonna?
well,
You think they're gonna
so
get
with that being
combative?
said, guys, uh, do we know what network the game's on? Because if it's Fox and Joe Buck's going to be calling the game, I feel like everybody in the bar would be cool with just like the game on and mute it while like we're talking and the hockey audio is playing. You know what I mean?
Listen, I hate Joe Buck as much as the next guy, but I don't think I'd be cool with that.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. That being said, guys, if you're planning on coming out to Pike's Pub on Tuesday, we're still going to be there. The Flyers are still going to play the Capitals. That hasn't changed. We're still going to Pike's Pub. That hasn't changed. So with that being said, make sure you make it out to Pike's Pub, 2nd Street Pike, Southampton, Pennsylvania, right on 2nd Street Pike, right off of Street Road. Make sure you come on out on Tuesday, have a beer and a bite with us, watch the Flyers game, and now you can watch the Eagles game along with us too. A little bit of a crossover. Um, Fuck it. We'll talk a little bit of Eagles while we're there too. 2 games going on. We'll be up there talking about them both, I guess. Great prizes we're going to be giving away. We're having a Santa Claus costume contest at Pike's Pub. Um, Judges are going to be Kevin, myself, and a neutral third party behind the bar. Is going to pick the winner of the Santa Claus costume contest. So make sure you come out on Tuesday with your best Santa Claus costume, and you definitely get a little bit of bonus points if you incorporate hockey in some way or another. So the Flyers have gone 2-1. Well, I'm sorry, 2-0-1 over the last 3 this week. Started off with a pretty dominant game against the Devils. We talked before that game, and I said the key was going to be another big second period. The Flyers have notably struggled in the second period of late, recent years, right? They put up 3 goals again in the second period, 1 in the third to ice it. We walk away 6-1 victors in New Jersey, which is great because the last thing you wanted to do was see New Jersey sweep the season series, right? So we pick up that win there, and we keep Jersey from sweeping. Any big takeaways for you there, Kevin?
Well, it was definitely the most dominating game that we've played probably since the Kraken. The second game of the year, which is the only other game that we've scored 6 goals. I said going in that this week playing the Devils, Montreal, and Ottawa. These were teams that you should beat. I thought the Devil game specifically, we really should have came out with some fire, which we did because they had already beat us twice, and we were trying to get double revenge. Cam's Hattie. It really seems like whoever is playing with Giroux produces points in some way or scores. He's been terrific this year. We'll get into him a little bit later too. Him hitting a milestone against the Senators. But I thought Hart was great again. No shocker there. And then moving into the Montreal game, which we kind of flopped after a encouraging victory over the Devils, where we were dominant, was pretty disappointing. What were your thoughts on that Montreal game after the big win against the Devils?
So obviously huge win against the Devils. Like I said, big second period. Moving into Montreal, that was a game where I feel like we played just well enough to win. We weren't blowing anybody away. Nothing to write home about. They played well enough to beat one of the worst teams in the league. Um, they had every opportunity to win the game. In third period, there was a couple of great scoring chances, a bunch of 10 bell chances out there in front of the net, couple of scrums. Obviously, none of them got past Jake Allen, so we ended up going into overtime. Great looking overtime period by the Flyers. I think the puck movement was great. The puck possession was even better. And they showed a willingness to shoot in that overtime period, which I don't think a lot of teams are showing in the 3-on-3 overtime. It's very much a possession game. They found a unique way to not only possess the puck in the overtime period, but shoot the puck and have some quality scoring chances. Unfortunately, at the end, it wasn't enough. We ended up going to the shootout. Flyers suck in the shootout historically. Worst team in the NHL since the inception of the shootout. So, nothing to be surprised about there. With that being said, the game against Montreal, we did everything that we had to do to win the game. They just could not seal the deal.
Well, I think they flopped. They were on a 3-game win streak. They got a great win against Vegas that Carter Hart pretty much stole. You beat the worst team in the leagues, which is okay, good. Good for you. You can only beat who you play. And then you came in and really took it to the Devils and looked really good doing it. And then riding that 3-game win streak into Montreal, a team that is one spot ahead of the Coyotes. It didn't really seem like they came out with as much fire. I know it was a late decision that there were going to be no fans. I'm not using that as an excuse that they didn't have, enough juice because there were no fans in the stands. You got goals from Max Woman and Jackson Cates. You need your primary scorers to pick you up in that game when you're playing a team that you should beat. A team that's on the road, a team that's on a 7-game losing streak themselves. Max Willman, by the way, also scored in that Devils game, and I think he's been playing pretty strong on that third line with Kevin Hayes. And then they typically, they'll have JVR or Lawton on there. They typically, like to switch them. But I think Max Willman has been a pleasant surprise. I thought he's brought a lot of speed to the lineup, and he's pretty good at winning puck battles and getting to loose pucks and keeping the puck alive in the offensive zone.
Absolutely. The kid's definitely got a high motor, high energy guy. I think the greatest, I don't want to say the greatest, but one of the best ways you could probably describe a guy like Max Willman, he's kind of like an NAK guy
Yeah,
without
that's
the brain
exactly what I
lag.
was thinking. Yeah,
He's
yeah,
NAK,
that's what I
but
was
like
thinking.
not stupid. You know what I mean? Like he's not making dumb plays and like slashing people right in front of the fucking referee and like you know what I mean? Like I think he's just a
Yeah.
smarter version of Knack. I don't think he has maybe some of the higher end skill of Knack's game, but I think that'll come with touches and with time on the ice and playing with a group of guys that he's going to develop some chemistry with.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I thought he looked great, and he's really playing for. It's hard to imagine it happening, but he's trying to play for a permanent spot. But
He's trying to
with
earn that one way deal, man.
yeah, Yeah, and with Wade Allison still rehabbing with the Phantoms, and he should be back up, pretty soon. Uh, Willman's spots on the line, especially with Farabee coming back. So, who actually made his return against the Senators game, against the Senators, which we'll get into in just a second here. But I didn't think the Flyers showed good support on the puck against Montreal, which was really disappointing. And then you give up that goal late in the third period for them to tie it. And then, first of all, the shootout. I know we talk about the shootout a lot and how just god awful it is, but like, and I love Coots, but that man just looks uglier than a player that I can remember trying to take a shootout attempt. He can't deke. All he's really got is like a head fake and then a shot.
Yeah, and I feel like he's the kind of guy that like still thinks he can deke. You know what I mean? Like he definitely tries, and you
Well, I
can't
don't.
really fault the guy for trying. But did you see my tweet about the shootout? Like, in
I
just my
did. I just.
take?
I did. I just can't. I can't exactly remember what it
Well,
was.
that's all right. I got it pulled up here for us. So I threw out on the Jawn Street account earlier this week after the loss against Montreal in the shootout. I said, when will the NHL get rid of the shootout? It's the equivalent to using a home run derby to decide a baseball game. Why turn a team game over to individual performances, win or lose as a team? So you, okay, I should have threw a comma in there. Win or lose as a team with two 3-on-3 overtime periods and no leaving the offensive zone deliberately. So, like, it's, like I said earlier, it's kind of become a puck possession game with 3-on-3 overtime, and you're just kind of playing keep away and trying to catch the other team in between changes. Like, when they do that, when they have the puck in the offensive zone for a while, and then they pass back out to center ice and they reset and everybody changes. Like, stay on the ice. Like, don't play this keep away bullshit. Like, that's not what 3-on-3 overtime is supposed to be. It's supposed to be like a fucking Mike Tyson fight. Haymakers back and forth until somebody hits the carpet. And I feel like you're not getting that. And I feel like if you eliminate the shootout and you just make it 2 3-on-3 periods, and as much as I hate to say go back to ties, that's the only other option in my opinion. I mean, what else? Like the shootout, like I said, it's a team game. Like, why are you going to leave it up to individual performance? It's a team game played with 5 guys on the ice at a time. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, when they brought it in the year after the lockout, in I think 2006 or seven, I believe, it was something that they did to try to, something for the fans, exciting. Oh, a shootout, but and to be honest, we're probably kind of biased because the Flyers are the worst team in history in the shootout. So like, I think we are probably biased to it. But no, I do think it stinks.
Well,
And
so
even
here's my final thought on the shootout, and I think you'll agree with this. I think the shootout in hockey, I can see where they're coming from when they tried it. They said, you know what, the most exciting play in hockey is a penalty shot. But why is a penalty shot so exciting? Because it doesn't happen all that often. You might see 5 penalty shots for a team in a year. And that's a really good year. Like, you usually don't see that many penalty shots, but that's like a good penalty shot year. You know what I mean? And the shootout is just a watered down version of that. Like, when they put together that CBA and they added the shootout, they said, what's the most exciting play in hockey? Some intern in the back raised his hand nervously. The shootout, sir. Yes, the shootout. Or, I mean, yes, the penalty shot. Okay. And then these fucking brainiacs get in a room together and they decide to create this shootout, this skills competition bullshit to decide real NHL hockey games. It's not hockey.
No, it's not. And I think even people who have, teams that are good in the shootout, nobody likes it. But the NHL is not going to, they're not going to go back to ties, and they're not going to add a second overtime period, and they're not going to add continuous 3-on-3. So I don't see options other than them, and I just don't think the NHL has the balls to do
Well, I'm
something
not
like
asking
that.
for continuous 3-on-3. I'm just saying,
Right now, I'm saying either one
like
would be
this
acceptable in my
keep away
eyes.
bullshit. Like once you establish the zone, unless you fumble the puck out of the offensive zone or it's cleared, like the puck should stay in the offensive zone. Pressure the opposing team. Like I feel like these like 3-on-3 started out as a great idea and it worked in the beginning. And then everyone said, "Well, you know what? We got some pretty good skill guys. Our goalie's pretty good. Let's just play keep away and we'll play for the shootout."
Yeah, I think it's a bitch move.
It's ruined
Obviously,
what
I
was
think.
supposed to be some really exciting hockey. And
Well,
yeah,
I still,
do I sound
I
like
still
a
think,
scorned lover because we've historically been the worst team in the league in terms of shootouts? Yeah, yeah, I probably sound like a scorned lover,
I still think most
but it's
teams go for it.
ridiculous.
I still think most teams go for it in the three
They
on
go
three.
for it, but again, it's supposed to be like a Tyson fight, and they're fighting like Mayweather. They're playing keep away until they catch the other guy with his hands down.
Some teams do that more than others, but I think for the most part, teams trade back and forth. I mean, when they're in the offensive zone and they're cycling and they have nothing, and then they, I mean, for a lot of it, they just skate out of the offensive zone to get a line change, and then they go right back in. Because they're very cautious of the turnover. Because a turnover 3-on-3 is leading to a 2-on-1, which, by the way, I will comment now. What if instead of the shootout we had 2-on-1s?
I don't like it.
You don't like the 2-on-1?
I don't like it for the same reason I don't like the shootout. It's just it's
It makes
it's
it makes it slightly
it's
less
show off your
of a
skills
skill
circus
competition.
bullshit.
It's
It's
still it's
circus bullshit. It's a fucking sideshow.
I think it's better than the shootout.
I don't want it in my sport. Yeah, it's probably
Right.
better than shoot. It's probably better than the
I don't
shootout. I'll give you that.
I don't really want ties though either when it comes down to it.
No, but I don't think you'll get a lot of ties.
Like without doing anything other than just eliminating the shootout.
Yeah, like I don't think you're gonna get a lot of ties because like I don't think these teams are gonna want to tie either. You know what I mean? Like I think they're gonna want to win. And okay, so here's another way you could do it. So go with my system with 2 3-on-3 overtimes and eliminate the loser point.
2 3-on-3 overtimes and eliminate the loser point.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't hate the sound of it. I just don't think the NHL would ever
the
have the
loser
balls
the
to
loser
add
point is the
double
worst part of
overtimes.
hockey. The shootout's the worst part of hockey. So why not eliminate them both? Why not make these teams want to play to win in 2 3-on-3 overtime periods?
I don't necessarily disagree with getting rid of the overtime to make them want to play and get the win and the extra point. I just don't think, and I think that the extra overtime period, maybe a second 5 minute 3-on-3. I think that's a good idea. I'm totally down for it. I just don't think the NHL has the balls to do it when it comes down to it,
Of course they don't because they're
which is
just like you and
disappointing. Which is
they're
very
waiting
disappointing.
around in the shallow end with their fucking water wings on.
Yeah, don't ever compare me to Gary Bettman.
I
That
don't know.
slug.
You guys both have a pretty sick collection of nursing shoes.
He don't have my hair. That's for damn sure.
So you have a collection of nursing shoes.
I mean, they're not mine, but they're in the house.
Oh man. All right. So back to this past week in Flyers hockey. So we touched on Montreal. I don't think there's a whole lot left to go over there. And then we win another overtime game. We go to back-to-back overtime games, Montreal, and then obviously against Ottawa, coming out with the win in overtime, 4-3. Um, the Flyers with 2 goals in the opening period, none in the second. Don't like to see that again. The Flyers do typically struggle in the second period. I thought those days might be over with the past 2 games having 2 pretty good second periods. Alas, could not be. Senators go with 2 goals in the second, 1 in the third. Flyers 1 in the third as well. And they pick up the game winner, 4th goal in overtime.
I thought it was a good rebound win. They had probably played the most dominating period of hockey they have all year in that first period against the Senators. And then their second period struggles continued. They gave up 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. They have a habit of giving up goals early in the second, specifically. And you can contribute it to a few things. It's, the energy that you're coming out with. It's, speed, because the changes are longer. You have to, you're changing on the on the opposite bench, so it's a little harder to get changes. A lot of good teams can make those changes, and a lot of it's about knowing when to change, when it's the longer change, so your team's not getting caught. But I thought it was a good win. It was a good bounce back win. Atkinson made a great play to pick the puck off and center it to Sanheim in overtime. Great finish. And then obviously, I don't know how could we even forget Claude Giroux in the first period with his goal tied Bill Barber for second all time on the Flyers in points with 883 points. My captain.
Absolutely. A guy who, if everything goes right, and he decides to stick around in Philadelphia, will end up at the top of that list one day.
So
Good
I
to see
crunched.
Oscar Lindblom get a goal in the first. Just his third on the season, which is, I mean, it's just sad. I mean, again, I'm not expecting him to be a 30-goal scorer, but I'd like to see him in that 15 to 20 goals range, and 3 goals through what 20 through 31 games.
Yeah, I'm not really looking at. I'm no longer in my mind relying on him for offensive output. I mean, he's
No, I
probably
get it,
better.
but
I
like
mean, he's. I
your
mean,
top
obviously, you're
end guys
giving.
aren't scoring that well either, so like you kind of have to have some depth scoring. And it's not like the old days where teams would just roll your top two lines over and over again. Like your third line guys have to be able to play.
Right. Well, I think when we talk about depth scoring, when you think of people who should be scoring, you're thinking of Coots, Konechny, Farabee, G, Atkinson, Hayes. That's what, like 6 players right there, and then you can even throw in Lawton. That's kind of your
Right,
depth
but those
right there.
guys
Like
aren't
like I
scoring
don't
every night.
like like I don't expect Lindblom to have more goals than any of those players I just named.
I'm not saying he needs to have more than them, but I'm saying he needs to have more than 3 through 31 games.
Well, Travis
Like
Konechny needs to have more than
I love Oscar, and his comeback
TK.
story is a great one. But at the end of the day, I need production, and I need more than 3 goals in 31 games.
Right. Well, I think TK needs more than 5. I think TK score only having 5 goals is, a lot more concerning. I'm way more concerned about that than Oscar Lindblom having 3. Like TK needs to be one of our
I'm not
leading goal
saying it's the
scorers. That's what he's
biggest
getting
problem
paid
on
to
the
do.
team. I'm just saying it's a problem.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
yeah,
I mean
like
I really
TK
don't
needs to
know.
be scoring more. But there's something to be said for the fact that Sanheim just scored his second goal, and he's already within one of Oscar Lindblom's goal total. A defenseman.
Well, I just don't think Oscar Lindblom is a goal scorer. I just don't
He
think we're
doesn't.
gonna see that out
I
of him.
understand that, but you're playing on a third line that's going to get some minutes. A
Well, he's
third line that, for all intensive purposes, is, I don't want to say it's super skilled for a third line in the NHL, but it's probably as skilled as any other third line. And I guarantee you, you look at any quality NHL team, and they're getting more than 3 goals through 31 games out of their third line right winger.
Well, he's played a lot of minutes on the fourth line too. I think obviously he's going to have more chance of producing offensively and having success playing higher in the lineup. But if you really think about it, the Flyers fully healthy, Oscar Lindblom probably finds himself on the fourth line.
And that's my point. He's a third line winger. He shouldn't be getting minutes on the fourth. He should be producing well enough to be on the third line.
I just don't think he has it in him. I think maybe he does. Maybe he does, but
But Patrick Brown does.
I'm not seeing it. Well, no, Patrick Brown shouldn't even be
He
in the
was on the
lineup.
third line the other night.
Yeah, well, it's not like Oscar Lindblom's blowing the doors off and is like playing so well that it demands putting him higher up in the lineup. If you're putting him higher up in the lineup, it's because you're trying to get him going. It's not because he's like specifically
That's
playing
my
well enough to be
point.
up there.
That's my point. That's the role that he should be in if he's playing his game. And to this point he hasn't been. He needs to
No,
wake up.
I mean, in my opinion, I just think he's more of a fourth liner, and like I feel like I don't know, I'm not really
Yeah, is he a fourth line
someone I
winger on a
depend on.
championship team? Yeah, but this isn't a championship team.
Well, we just talked about if the Flyers.
For our talent level, he's a third line winger.
We need more talent.
No shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very indifferent towards him. It's Oscar Lindblom isn't a player I think about a lot anymore, because again, maybe my expectations are too low for him. But when I think about the Flyers and like their problems and who's scoring and who's not, like there's more. Like I think Coots is one. I think TK is one in terms of players who just need to be scoring more. Obviously Hayes is, we're giving him some slack because he's coming back from the core muscle injury, and we know how taxing that can be and how long of a recovery
Right.
that is.
And again, I'm not saying it's the biggest problem on the roster that Oscar Lindblom only has 3 goals. But my point is, that's a guy that you need to see more production out of, especially when your top line guys aren't scoring at the pace that they're supposed to.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice if he was potting in more goals because the main guys aren't.
I'm not asking for a lot more goals, but give me 5. Like I don't think I'm having this conversation with you right now if he has 5 goals to this point.
I mean, he could come out and pot 2 goals tomorrow, and all of a sudden he has five. That doesn't, make up for his, lack of scoring for the whole year.
You can be a scrub NHL player, who's still a pretty good hockey player, by the way. It's the best league in the world. But you can be a scrub fourth line NHL player and have more than 3 goals through 31 games if you get to the right areas and you play hard and around the crease, which
Right.
is
And I
something that
mean,
this team
yeah.
has lacked as a whole, is that attitude to kind of get in front of the net and score those dirty goals. So, I'm not saying, again, this isn't strictly on Lindblom. It's just
Well, we could
he's
also
just a
say
guy
that
that I expect a little bit more out of,
that's fair. No,
along with the rest of the team.
it is fair, but I think you could also attribute that, Oscar Lindblom isn't going to create a lot of goals for himself. He's
No,
going
and
to
I'm not
right.
asking him to,
And
but
I
I'm
think I think we could say that a lot of those struggles too also just come from the overall team play that we've been seeing, and the team's general lack of being able to score.
right. No, I get it. He's one piece of the pie, and I understand that he's not the only problem. I'm not making him out to be. Um,
There are a lot of
but
problems with this team, right?
he's a guy that I feel like hasn't been held accountable to this point because of his situation. Again, I love him. It's a great comeback story. I am so thankful that he made it out the other side of the Ewing sarcoma diagnosis. I don't want anybody to misinterpret that.
No, I
But I
don't think
feel
anyone would
like
misinterpret it. You can criticize him, it's like
right,
he's not immune to
right.
criticism.
Well, and that's the thing. I feel like he has been to this point.
Yeah, well, AV benched him earlier in the year for a, quote unquote quote mental reset. Um, I definitely don't think he should be immune to benchings if he's not playing well. I mean, that's not something that I think should be going on. Whether or not the coach himself has that in the back of his mind when he's
Right.
going to do it, like
Right.
it's not
Well,
a problem that we can solve.
obviously he just scored, so maybe he'll turn it around here. You mentioned coaching there. So far, the Flyers have played a little better under Mike Yo. You're starting to see a little bit of more of that detail orientedness that Chuck Fletcher was talking about in the press conference. I feel like the team looks a little bit more prepared, a little bit more bought in. Um, Sam Carchidi put out on Twitter, I believe it was earlier this morning, he had received a message from Alain Vigneault that he will not be speaking on his departure from Philadelphia, and something along the lines of how the room just wasn't bought in anymore into him. Now, on the other hand, it's not like the locker room is a complete shit show either, because Paul Bissonnette was just having beers with Keith Yandel and Kevin Hayes. Um, just I think it was maybe a week and a half ago, and he said he heard from both Yans and Hazy that the boys in the room still love each other and it's still a super tight room. Like everybody's getting along. And Hazy was even quoted as saying that you would never, like, if you were in the room, you would never know that they were on a 10-game losing streak because the room is still that tight. So I don't want to say that the locker room's lost, but I think maybe AV's points were kind of falling a little bit moot.
Yeah, and I think something like that, is bound to happen when you have the year that they had last year, and then you start struggling, especially struggling to score goals. Like when the goal scorers aren't scoring and like the system isn't working, like people start getting antsy, and then top that with the way last year went, and yeah, the message can get stale, it can get dry. They seemed like playing for Mike Yo. I think Mike Yo. I think probably the biggest difference I've seen so far under Yo is their puck support for one another in all three zones. You know, in the defensive zone, they're not blowing the zone early. They're giving they're giving our defensemen better outlet passes. Sanheim or Provorov or whoever isn't trying to pass it from our zone, from our zone to the opposing team's red line. They're not trying to like stretch passes anymore. They're giving them a better lane to pass the puck, maybe cheating back a little bit more so that they're able to receive it. The problem really I think is consistency and them being able to do that consistently, which is what good
Right.
teams do.
Well, and I feel like with a little bit more practice and kind of learning the way that Yosi wants them to play, I think that can only help them, further achieve from here. With that being said, I'm obviously not giving them a free pass. Like we've still had our struggles, but there is enough time to get this thing turned around. And I think as long as the scoring wakes up and they continue to play with the intent to help the guy next to them, to look out for each other on the defensive end, to look for each other in the offensive zone. As long as they continue to do those things, I don't see any reason why they couldn't turn this thing around. Um, with that being
Before
said,
before
what
we get
would
into
you?
that, I'm sorry. Before we get into that, real quick, I just wanted to go over where we are heading into the week after this week.
Well, why don't we finish what we were on first, and then we'll.
All right, go ahead, continue.
Eh. Well, no sense in jumping around, right? Um, See, now you got me losing my train of thought.
We were talking about their team play.
Oh yes. So I was gonna say, just overall, what would you give Mike Yo as a grade thus far? Again, it's early. It's been a few games, um, but I think we have at least somewhat of a decent size sample size to maybe give him an early grading so far. Where would you have Mike Yo on a grading
I'll
scale
give
right
him
now?
a B minus.
I would go C plus because we're still seeing
Yeah,
a lot of the
yeah.
same. We're still seeing a lot of the same issues. We have seen some improvement, obviously. So like the big issues that stick out, um, maybe aren't as bad as they once were, but they're still bad. You know what I mean? So I don't want to give him too high of a grade, but I think he's starting to turn things around. And again, I think the more he can kind of get the players prepared and bought into his system, I think it can only improve from here. So with that being said, we wanted to look ahead into the next week of games.
I also think I just personally like the message I've been hearing from him as well in his interviews and
Yeah,
about
he's
what he's
he's
trying to do
definitely
with the players.
for sure, and I think the big thing again is just trying to get everybody bought into the system and really getting the point across that it's not too late and that we still have a chance. Now, granted, it's going to be tough. It's a hard division. We said at the beginning of the year this division is going to eat itself, but they're not so deep yet that they can't turn it around. They're not the Islanders. They're not the Coyotes. They're not the Tampa Bay Lightning either. but they're somewhere in between. With that being said, we got a pretty busy week coming up, not only for the Flyers, but for the boys here at Jawn Street Hockey. Now, the Flyers aren't all that busy. They have two games coming up this week. Tuesday, December 21st, same day as the Eagles game, same day as our road trip back out to Pike's Pub. Make sure you guys pop on in on Tuesday. That's Pike's Pub, 2nd Street Pike, Southampton, Pennsylvania, right off of Street Road. Make sure you pop in. We're going to be out there pregame, postgame, intermission reports, giving stuff away, drinking ice cold beers, and watching the Birds take on the Washington football team and watching the Flyers take on the Capitals. It's Washington squared, and we're there to react to all of it at Pike's Pub. So make sure you come on out on Tuesday. And then Thursday, the 23rd, the Flyers are taking on the Penguins at 7 o'clock. Guess what? We got another live show. So if you can't make it out to the show on Tuesday, make sure you make it out on Thursday. Thursday, we're going to be at Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company on Ray Avenue in Croydon, Pennsylvania, right off of State and Cedar Road, minutes from Route 13, Street Road, and I-95. So make sure you pop on out. That's Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company. Come on out. Get yourself an ice cold Jawn. It is the official beer of Jawn Street, so make sure you pop on out. Come watch a hockey game with us. Flyers taking on the Penguins for the Keystone State rivalry. And that's all the hockey we got for next week. The Flyers will then be off until Wednesday, December 29th, when they take on the Seattle Kraken. Kevin, your thoughts on the two games this week?
Well, to go over where we sit at the moment after beating the Senators on Saturday, the Flyers find themselves currently tied with the Senators for fifth place in the Metro. They're both sitting at 29 points. The Blue Jackets hold the tiebreaker for what it's worth with two more regulation wins. With that said, we have a chance. I think they could make a run. I don't think you get to the fourth spot in the Metro. Right now, Pittsburgh is sitting at fourth in the Metro with 37 points, holding the first wild card spot. That's 8 points ahead of us. I think catching Pittsburgh is going to be difficult. I don't know if we can do it. I think we'd have to, go on a real hot streak. But the second wild card it's right there. It's within striking distance. You're only 4 points behind Detroit. Now the biggest obstacle there is going to be the Bruins, who currently are sitting right outside that second wild card spot with 30 points.
I'm not too worried about the Bruins.
The Bruins also have 3 games in hand, so they've only played 26 to our 29 games. The Bruins, they're not the Bruins of a few years ago.
With no goalie to stop the puck. They're even being rumored to possibly be bringing back Tuukka Rask on like an $800,000 a year deal, and just kind of bring him back on a year-to-year basis because Jacob Swayman is obviously a young goaltender and he hasn't been, the franchise guy that they're hoping he'll become to this point. And the other guy that they signed, let me see here. I just got to pull up the roster.
I don't think they're an obstacle for the good teams. I think they're an obstacle for us, though. Like you said, we're somewhere in that in between, which is kind of where Boston sits as well.
No, I hear you, but I feel like right now, their offense is what's keeping them afloat. Allmark and Swayman haven't been, great goaltenders. They're not the kind of goaltenders that I think you can ride to a playoff run. I don't care how good your offense is. I don't care what your first line has as a cute little name, like the fucking perfection line. I don't care.
Well, I don't know.
You need to have good goaltending to be a good team in this league, and I just don't think that the Bruins have it this year.
I don't know Allmark's stats off the top of my head, but he was pretty damn good for Buffalo last year. Like I said, I don't know specifically how he's doing this year, but I think anytime you have a team with, Coyle, McAvoy, Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak on it, I think you're more than capable of making a playoff run. I don't think they're contenders by any means, but for a team like us, like the Flyers, who are struggling, and like I said, we're somewhere in that in between area. We could lean one way harder than the other way, depending on how the next few weeks go. I'm not too worried about Detroit. Like I said, Out of Columbus and Detroit and Boston, um, I'd probably say that Boston is a team that I'd be more concerned about getting into that spot over than the latter.
No, I hear you. So just to go back to Linus Allmark real quick. 383 shots against for 353 saves, 30 goals against for a 9.22 save percentage, and 2.52 goals against average. Um, he's 7-5 on the season.
Those are pretty good
So
numbers.
they're okay. I mean, I don't know. I just don't feel like they have a number one goalie that's going to scare me. Like, I feel like eventually the bottom's going to fall out on that team.
Well, he's certainly no Tuukka Rask, right? Obviously, like that's not a question. Whether or not he's good enough to lead them to the playoffs, I think he is. As long as the team's playing well, I think he's a goalie that can really strive if he's getting good play in front of him. I still think Boston has a pretty good defense, and I think they're pretty deep at forward. Like you said, their offense is pretty potent and keeps them in a lot of games. Uh, but the thing that kind of concerns me coming up here for the Flyers isn't even really necessary these games against Washington and Pittsburgh, which are really measuring sticks to see how far we've come along and if we can, sustain some good play against Washington, who is tied for first in our division, and Pittsburgh. But after that, the weeks after the Washington Pittsburgh game, we immediately go on our West Coast trip, and historically we've struggled there, right? We've the West Coast trip, which is also known as the Disney on Ice trip, has always been something that we have dreaded. Now given the schedule during this trip isn't difficult. You're playing Seattle, you're playing the Kings, you're playing San Jose. Anaheim is probably the toughest game in there. Um,
I would say Anaheim and LA. LA's kind of they're trending up. They're trending in the
yeah.
right direction as a team. Anaheim, absolutely crazy. Did you see the Trevor Zegras Michigan
Yes, I
assist?
did. Yes, I did.
Holy
Absolutely
fucking
filthy,
shnikes, bro!
disgusting. I had to
The
watch it a
amount of
couple times because I
skill,
wasn't sure. I had to watch it a few times because at first I wasn't sure what the hell he just did. You know what I
the
mean?
skill that is in our game today is phenomenal. And I
First of
will
all, the
say this:
confident.
even with all the skill, I still miss the heavy-handed fourth liners,
Yeah,
man.
no, absolutely. But playing into my concern about the West Coast trip, even though we're not playing great teams, because it's a trip that we've historically struggled on, it worries me. And then the week coming right out of that West Coast trip, the next 4 out of our 5 games are against Pittsburgh, Carolina, Boston, and the Rangers. Right after that trip, so if we go like 2-2, like if we struggle on that road trip and then come back and that's the next 4 out of 5 games, like by that time, if things don't go well, we could really put ourselves out of it.
I agree. This is going to be a crucial little stretch here in terms of, what this club's really going to look like moving forward. Um, Now, real quick, I want to touch on something. It's not as much a Flyers thing as it is an around the league thing. Um, More and more games are being postponed and pushed off across the NHL, and it's becoming more and more of a possibility that the NHL will not go to China for the Winter Olympics this year. Um,
I think I seen something a few minutes ago, right before we started. I'm not sure if they had officially announced that they weren't going, but I seen a lot of the hockey pages I follow posting that they weren't going.
right. I'm on NHL.com right now, so I'll give it a quick scroll. I don't see anything right now, but I think it's a real possibility that the NHL does not go to the Olympics this year. And to be honest with you, as much as I love Olympic hockey and it's such a treat and it's one of my favorite things that I look forward to every 4 years, especially when the NHL participates. I just don't think this is a year where you can really do it, right? Especially because the Olympics are in China this year. There's the threat of having to quarantine for 5 weeks if you contract the virus while you're over there. Um, you
No,
know,
thank you.
yeah, 5 weeks after the Olympic break, you're pretty much looking at
Go
playoff
fuck
time.
yourself. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? No,
like
fuck
so
that. Fuck
for
that.
those reasons, I kind of understand if the league doesn't want to go. Um, it'd be a lot different if you didn't have the threat of that 5 week quarantine hanging over your head if you just so happen to contract it while you're in the Olympic Village.
And it's also
So,
not the same as if like traveling to Canada, where you got to quarantine if you get it there. I think for like 2 weeks. Like it's just a major
right, like
difference
yeah, like five weeks
on the other side
quarantined
of the world.
anywhere would suck, let alone in a communist country. And again, I mean, 5 weeks after the Olympic break, you're pretty much looking at playoff time by that point. Like, I'm sorry, at that point, the team needs you more. And it's also in the Olympic agreement that if these guys contract the virus while they're over there, they won't make their league salaries either. The teams won't have to pay the players if they contract the virus while they're over there. So that's something that I think will lead to a lot of players personally opting out, even if the league decides to still go. You see, Robin Lehner decided that he didn't want to go to the Olympics this year for the sake of his own mental health, and he didn't want to be locked down again. And I understand and I respect his decision, and it really wouldn't surprise me if the NHL decided not to go to the Olympics this year,
Yeah, because those
and I
are
wouldn't be as
some.
pissed off as I thought I would be.
No, yeah, because I was really looking forward to it, but with the circumstances that you just laid out, it's not worth it at all.
Well, and you got to think like this is going to be the one and only chance that some of these guys will have had to play together on the international level. Like for Canada, like McDavid and Crosby are never going to get to play in the Olympics together unless it's this year. And Crosby and McKinnon aren't going to get to play together. And some of these American guys, Jonathan Taves isn't going to get to play with some of the newer, younger guys as far as the American talent's concerned. Might be his and Patrick Kane's last shot at the Olympics for Team USA. And these are some guys that you really kind of want to see play, and you want to see some of these older guys take the younger international players under their wing and kind of, hey, this is what it is to represent your country on the world stage. Um, but again, I just don't think it's a smart decision right now.
I'd personally opt out too. Like I don't want to get stuck over there for 5 weeks and not get paid for it. Like I don't want to get stuck on the other side of the world for 5 weeks forcibly and not get paid. No. Especially if you have
Yeah,
a wife and especially if you have a wife and child at home. No.
100%.
I
So
wouldn't be going either.
you know, optimistic that it might still happen, but I don't think it will, especially if it
Just move it to fucking
continues the
Canada.
way that it has been. Yeah, they're not going to do that. There's a whole fucking bidding process involved in getting the Olympics in your country, and to be honest with you, that might start a fucking world war. Um, so with that being said, there's not a whole lot else left to talk about other than our two live events this week. Once again, guys, Tuesday, Pike's Pub, Second Street Pike. Make sure you're there. We're giving stuff away. We're drinking beer. We're watching two Philly sports teams take on two Washington teams. Does Washington even have fans? I don't know. We're going to find out. And Thursday, the 23rd, we're going to be back at Neshaminy Creek Brewing Company. Santa Claus costume contest at both events. We're giving stuff away at both events. If you can't make one, make sure you make the other. What else do you have to do? It's Christmas week. I know a lot of you guys took your vacation week for Christmas week anyway. So come on out. Enjoy a couple of pops with us. Watch some hockey. Listen to the boys talk about the game. And we may even do a little fan interaction segment. With that being said, we appreciate everybody for checking in. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube Live. Don't forget to check out all of our awesome sponsors in the Chamonix Creek Brewing Company, Croydon, Pennsylvania, right on Ray Avenue. Delicious, ice cold Jawn, the official beer of Jawn Street. Norse Beards, get a jump start on that playoff beard. Or if you're like me and you carry the playoff beard year round, makes a great stocking stuffer. Beard bombs, beard butters, beard oils, anything you need for your beard. Get it at Norse Beards. Use the promo code Jawn. Get 10% off your entire order. Pike's Pub, 2nd Street Pike. Great place for a beer and a bite. And last but certainly not least, the only hoagies that the Jawn Street Hockey Podcast recommends, Hubba Hubba Hoagies. The only hoagies that make you say Hubba Hubba. Make sure you try the Turkey Italian while you're there. They're right on Woodburn Road, right around the corner from the Oxford Valley Mall. You're out at the mall shopping until you drop, getting your last minute Christmas shopping done. You don't want to go to the food court. It's the same old bullshit. There's a Subway over there. There's a fucking McDonald's in the middle. Some Chinese restaurant you'd never heard of. And that's it. It's all the same at every food court. Do you want the same, or do you want a handmade quality hoagie from Hubba Hubba Hoagies? Of course you do. They're the only hoagies, once again, that make you say Hubba Hubba. We appreciate everybody checking in once again. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube Live. Don't forget to be a friend and tell a friend. Let them know where they can get the best hockey talk in Philadelphia. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. 5-star reviews or 1-star reviews will be read on the podcast. Thanks again for checking in, everybody. We're out.
Bye, everyone.